Welcome, it is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel as we try to build this thing up. Big one on Sunday night, obviously. Aaron Rodgers, Pittsburgh Steelers against Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. Rodgers' first matchup against Green Bay ever. Didn't have any against the Jets. Now with Pittsburgh, and it's a standalone game. It's on Sunday Night Football. And while there's all this hype and hoopla surrounding the matchup, and rightfully so, and specifically the angle of Aaron Rodgers going up against his former team that he spent most of his career with, won a Super Bowl with, I do believe when we look at the numbers, and I promise I'm not going to suffocate you with too many today, just a couple important ones. When we look at Aaron Rodgers and the season he has had, and it's been a pretty good one for Pittsburgh so far, and they're leading the AFC North, and we'll see if they can hold off the Ravens, who are off to a 1-5 start, but getting Lamar Jackson back, and the Bengals, who traded for Joe Burrow and just beat Pittsburgh last week, but are still off the mark a little bit. Where are we at? Pittsburgh's 4-2, Cincy's 3-4, Cleveland's 2-5, and then the Ravens are 1-5. And much like the Packers defense with defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley saw against Cincinnati and Cleveland with Joe Flacco, against Washington with Jaden Daniels back in week 2, and against Jacoby Brissett in Arizona last week, there will be a similar blueprint that Aaron Rodgers has with this offense on Sunday night based off what the numbers with Rodgers in the offensive line, even with DK Metcalf, have told us so far this year. And we all kind of know one of the storylines with Green Bay's defense, the top one being the acquisition of Micah Parsons in the offseason, and he had his real first, holy crap, this guy is as good as advertised game against Arizona with 3 sacks, because I can bring up quarterback pressures, quarterback hits as much as I want. Everyone's still going to harp on sacks. How many does he have? And he had 3 in one game against Arizona. But another one of the narratives with this defense going on so far this year is a lack of takeaways, and the fact that Green Bay only has 3 so far in 6 games. And it's a mark, by the way, that ranks 31st in the NFL. It's not good. A lot of the explaining behind it, according to the Packers, when you hear Matt LaFleur asked about, hey, why haven't they been able to generate too many takeaways? And they ask Hafley the same questions. And they believe it revolves around quarterbacks not taking too many chances downfield against Green Bay so far this year. And a lot of that holds true when you just watch these games and you go back and rewatch and then watch the tape from the all 22 angles if you do that. This Sunday night, many Packer fans who maybe haven't watched too many of Rodgers' games with Pittsburgh will be expecting to see the Aaron Rodgers we saw in Green Bay, the one who aired it out and took those deep shots downfield to the likes of Jordy Nelson and Greg Jennings and Donald Driver and James Jones and Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb and countless others. I'm here to tell you today, I think the script will look far more like what Green Bay has seen from other opposing quarterbacks this year. Now, we know Aaron Rodgers is one of the best deep ball throwers the game has ever seen. Ever. How many deep post routes to Jordy Nelson can you remember? How many times would he air it out anytime he saw one-on-one coverage with Devontae Adams downfield? Looks to James Jones, Greg Jennings, early on in Rodgers' career. He is undoubtedly one of the best deep ball throwers the NFL has ever seen. Not just in his time frame of playing, but I'm talking ever. And we saw last Thursday night, albeit in a loss, albeit an incomplete pass, Aaron Rodgers on the final play of that game in Cincinnati heaved up a last-second prayer of a Hail Mary against the Bengals. And the pass fell incomplete and Pittsburgh lost. But Aaron Rodgers on that Hail Mary attempt a week ago saw the ball travel 69.8 yards in the air, and per next-gen stats, it was the longest recorded pass attempt in the NFL since at least 2017. Not since 2017, since at least 2017, and that is per next-gen stats. He heaved that sucker damn near 70 yards on the final play of that game. And it was just a good reminder of, yes, he's 41. Yeah, he still has that cannon of an arm. And when you talk about guys who can just uncork one, in today's game, you think of names like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. You don't have to be one of the best quarterbacks, right, to be able to, chuck a deep ball. Like Joe Milton has a cannon of an arm. He's not even a starting quarterback in the NFL. But when you stack up the best, who can throw it the farthest, who has the best deep ball, top 5-10, like Joe Milton certainly can throw it the farthest when you bundle in like the top 10. Rodgers has always been there. We saw a glimpse of it last Thursday night. This year, however, we haven't really seen the deep shots in Pittsburgh, and we haven't really seen the deep shots taken against this Green Bay defense. And there's a lot of numbers that would indicate it's going to be the same premise for the Steelers this Sunday night against Jeff Hafley's defense. This also comes courtesy of Next Gen Stats, folks. Among all quarterbacks in the NFL who have just started a game this year, not current starters, just all quarterbacks who have started a game this year, Rodgers has the second lowest air yards per completion mark at 3.5 yards. Lowest of his career or second lowest. It's either the lowest or the second lowest of his career. 3.5 yards, his air yards per completion. And it's an average for Rodgers this year that ranks only ahead of Cleveland rookie quarterback Dylan Gabriel, who has a 3.3 average in that same category. So basically it's just saying, on passes that Rodgers is completing, on average, the ball is traveling 3.5 yards through the air. Not that much. And you look around at sort of the cast of characters they have in Pittsburgh in the passing game. The guy that takes the cake, obviously, is DK Metcalf, who Pittsburgh acquired in the offseason from Seattle. And we talk about DK Metcalf and his build and his frame and his attributes. What's the number one thing people talk about DK Metcalf? It's his straight line speed. It's his speed. DK Metcalf can burn with the best of the wide receivers. We often talk about, the speed of Tyreek Hill and how he's always regarded as the fastest wide receiver in the NFL. Yet one of the most famous chase down plays of an interception from behind was DK Metcalf's against Arizona a few years ago when was it Budda Baker? He chased down someone in the secondary for Arizona. Didn't give up on the play. Great tutorial for coaches to show their teams, like, hey, this is why you don't give up on a play. And DK Metcalf has always had top-line speed. And when you bring in DK Metcalf to your offense, you're often thinking this is a guy that's going to be able to take the lid off a defense. Those opportunities have just been few and far between this year. And again, there's more reasons to why, because we know Rodgers can still uncork it. But when you look up front at this offensive line, and you look at Rodgers' inability to really extend plays outside of the pocket at this point in his career, it's kind of telling to some of those numbers. Because on paper, you would see DK Metcalf, and you would assume that whoever is playing quarterback is just unleashing deep shots on at least a semi-consistent basis week in and week out to at least keep a defense honest, because he is one of the best vertical threats in the game. But when you look up front at this offensive line for Pittsburgh, among all quarterbacks who have started a game this year, Rodgers has an average time to throw of 2.63 seconds. And I say that number to you, it might not mean much. You're like, okay, his average time to throw is 2.63 seconds. How does that number stack up to the rest of the league? It's the third shortest amount of time to throw the ball. And so I think that's part of the issue right there. You're circling, okay, they have a deep threat in DK Metcalf, who is a legit vertical threat in this offense, but they're not really throwing it down the field too much. And they have a quarterback who can certainly, although he's not as agile as he once was, can let that thing fly. He can fling the pill around. So why then is Aaron Rodgers at 3.5 yards, air yards per completion, which is the second lowest mark in the NFL, ahead of only Dylan Gabriel of the Cleveland Browns? It starts up front with that offensive line and how they're not allowing Aaron Rodgers too much time to throw. And when you look at this Packers defense with Jeff Hafley, it is a ferocious defensive front led by Micah Parsons, Rashawn Gary, Devontae Wyatt when he's healthy, Lucas Van Ness when he's healthy. Colby Wooden has had an incredible year. You have Carl Brooks. There's a lot of names that form what is, if you look at quarterback pressures, quarterback hits, sacks, those numbers, it's one of the best defensive fronts in the National Football League this year that the Green Bay Packers boast. With Jeff Hafley at the controls as the defensive coordinator. And so we have seen week in and week out, whether it's Flacco, Brissett, Daniels back in week 2, and Daniels is one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the NFL. The game plan for offense is going against Green Bay's defense is get that sucker out quick. If we're throwing it, Get it out quick because we don't want to give this defensive front a chance to tee off. And we saw Brissett do that just one too many times last week, leading to a big day for Green Bay's defensive front. Rashawn Gary had a strip sack. Micah Parsons had 3 sacks, as we all know. It was a big day for that defensive front that didn't have Lucas Van Ness or Devontae Wyatt. And so we've seen this script before this year with other offenses, and that's it's going to be very, very similar. If you're going into this game thinking, oh man, I'm worried, let's say you're worried at the cornerback spot, and a lot of people do have their questions whether Nate Hobbs can flourish on the boundary, whether or not Keyshawn Nixon can play as a number 1 cornerback in this defense, and why Carrington Valentine only played 2 snaps last week. So if you have questions, concerns about the cornerback spot, and you're looking at Aaron Rodgers and you know his history and you know his resume, and you're assuming that, DK Metcalf's going to get behind this defense time and again on Sunday, or at least on a couple chances, it could happen. But this defense is built by Hafley to not give up the big play. And if you allow stuff underneath, so be it. Just don't give up the big play. And the defensive front is built and assembled in a way where there's multiple havoc wreckers to go after and harass the opposing quarterback. But the chess match has begun where quarterbacks going up against Green Bay's defense are just getting it out quick. So Rodgers has the capability to beat you deep with his arm. Still, DK Metcalf is every bit that wide receiver. It's just Green Bay's defensive front blended with Pittsburgh's offensive line, mixed with what we've seen with Rodgers' numbers this year, tell you it's going to be a lot like what we saw when Green Bay's pass defense specifically went up against Cleveland and Cincinnati, which were both Joe Flacco games, ironically, Washington, Arizona. I'm trying to remember back week 1 against Detroit because I just don't have the numbers in front of me. But I don't even remember with Jamison Williams or Amon-Ra St. Brown, I don't remember the Detroit offense taking too many shots downfield because it's just not there. Green Bay's defense is built in a way where they don't want to get beat deep. They don't want to allow those big chunk plays. And offenses have adapted to that. And this is something that Aaron Rodgers has done basically all year in Pittsburgh. And I mentioned all quarterbacks who have started a game this year, 2.63 seconds is his time to throw allowed, and it's the 3rd shortest amount of time in the National Football League. And you have to keep in mind, too, I mentioned this. By the way, Mitch, I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Always, always appreciative of all the support, trying to build the channel up. This is 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. This is not peak of his powers in his prime Aaron Rodgers with the Packers, where we saw him use his legs to extend plays many a times on a weekly basis. Aaron Rodgers has a scramble percentage of 2.6% this year, which among quarterbacks with at least 50 snaps is 34th out of 40. And if you're wondering, holy crap, Aaron Rodgers has a scramble percentage of 2.6%, you recognize that is a very, very low number, 34th out of 40. Who the hell is behind him? Who has a lower scramble percentage amongst quarterbacks who have taken 50 snaps this year? The names that I'm going to read you that Rodgers is ahead of in scramble percentage make it a little self-explanatory because it's guys who just don't move around. He's ahead of Joe Flacco, Cooper Rush, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, Mac Jones, and Sam Darnold. So Rodgers doesn't, at this point in his career, have the ability to really extend plays outside of the pocket too much. But wisely, because we know Rodgers is a very intelligent and cerebral quarterback, he is not trying to do that either. He is not trying to extend those parameters and roll the dice by scrambling anyways. With a scramble percentage of just 2.6%, he's not trying to risk that too often. And then a couple more numbers I want to throw your way that just really hammer home this point that it'll be fun, it'll be exciting. It's Rodgers against the Packers, but if you're expecting, a ton of fireworks back and forth, it could happen. And Rodgers, man, if there is a quarterback who is built to just, get a little bit of that lick back, who could be good in I don't know if he wants to view it as a revenge spot. He's probably not. He said today in an interview, today being Wednesday, that's when I'm recording this and putting it out, he said he has no animosity towards the Packers. He said he wishes the last season would have gone differently, given that they came up short of a playoff berth, had a chance to clinch Week 18 against Detroit in that year. But he said he has no animosity. But deep down, he's gonna want to go out. He wants to ball out every week. Every player does. But there's a little bit more fire in it for Rodgers this week, whether he'll admit it or not. I saw David Bakhtiari on a podcast hosted by Matt Schneidman, and he was saying, like, Bakhtiari said he loves how both sides are saying, like, hey, it's just another game, it's just another Sunday, and Bakhtiari said, like, no, it's not. And so there's going to be a little more fire for Rodgers to want to go out there and light it up on the scoreboard. I just don't, with everything we've seen from Pittsburgh's offense this year in the numbers and everything we've seen with how teams have approached playing the Packers, I don't see it being one of these games where Rodgers is just, throwing one 20-yard pass attempt after another down the field, even taking a lot of shots down the field. I just don't see that happening. Against Cincinnati last week, folks, think about this. Against Cincinnati last Thursday night, Aaron Rodgers attempted 34 passes, okay? He attempted 34. 21 of those 34 attempts, I'm not even talking completions, 21 of the 34 attempts came within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. Think about that. He only had 13 of 34 attempts where the ball traveled past 5 yards through the air. It is quick. It is RPOs. It is Rodgers reading what the secondary is doing on those RPOs. It is get it out of your hands quickly. Because his time to throw, not great this year. His average air yards per completion, one of, if not the lowest mark of his career. But they are getting by, and they're making it work. And a lot of that credit does still go to Rodgers and obviously their offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith. Now, I want to get back to Metcalf for a final point here. DK Metcalf, Pittsburgh has done a brilliant job, and maybe I should have saved this for final thoughts when that comes out Thursday, because I thought this number was very, very telling, and this is how Pittsburgh, if they're able to burn Green Bay's secondary, if Metcalf's able to get the better of Hobbs and Keyshawn Nixon, it's going to come on these throws that are still, let's just say, within the line of scrimmage to 10 yards downfield. Because Pittsburgh hasn't really taken many deep shots. But they have a deep shot threat. Where they have succeeded with Metcalf anyways is drawing up designs, having these plays where even within that 5 to 10 yard radius of the line of scrimmage, he's in space already. He's getting the ball and he's immediately able to work in space. No player, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends in the passing game, running backs, wide receiver, tight end, throw them all in there. No player in the league has a higher yak, yards after catch, per reception than DK Metcalf. And his number is a staggering 11.6 yards in that category. So per reception, DK Metcalf is averaging 11.6 yards after the catch. They aren't throwing it 40 yards downfield, and he catches it at the 5 and waltzes in those last 5 yards. They are getting it to DK Metcalf quickly, whether he's on the outside, whether he's in the slot, and they're making the play designs are putting him in space already when he's catching the ball, and then he is doing what he does best, and that is using his speed in an advantageous manner for him and for the Pittsburgh offense. No player in the league has a higher yak per reception number than DK Metcalf at 11.6 yards. The Steelers have wisely realized if they just get the ball to DK in any fashion, and they get it to him quickly, he can do a lot of damage after the catch. And I thought this was cool because obviously a lot of Packer fans are the ones tuning into a Packers-centric channel. The second player might not be your first guess, might not be your second guess. Obviously, I'm leading into a tease, so you might be guessing it's a Packers player. DK Metcalf is first in yak per reception this year, yards after the catch, per reception, 11.6 yards. Second in the entire NFL in that same category, Tucker Kraft, 9.3 in that category. Yards after the catch per reception. Tucker Kraft is second in the NFL. You think about some of these burners, you think about some of the best wide receivers in the NFL, tight ends, running backs, whatever, like Christian McCaffrey in the passing game, Bijan Robinson, legitimate threats. Like, you just dump it off to them, they can take it 40 yards down the field. And on that one play, the yak was 40 yards on the one reception. And you think about wide receivers like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, and even guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown always has really high yards after the catch numbers. DK Metcalf's one in the NFL in that category so far this year. Tucker Kraft is 2. They're not bombing it downfield with Jordan Love to Tucker Kraft. Jordan Love is a gunslinger. He'll uncork a few every single week. But the ones that Tucker Kraft, crossers, slants, outs, corner outs, these short passes where it's get it to him quick and then watch Tucker Kraft work his magic. He is second in the NFL in yak per reception, 9.3 yards. So Pittsburgh, I would imagine, Rodgers is going to take a couple of deep shots. Regardless of who you're playing, when you're playing, what the weather is, what time of year, whatever, an offense is going to try to take a couple of deep shots just to keep a defense honest. Green Bay's defense is ready for those plays, ready for those moments to not allow the deep shots. Where this game will be heavily influenced is with Rodgers and the Packers defense knowing, hey, look at the numbers. He's going to get it out quick just like almost every other quarterback we have faced this year. And who is his primary target in those scenarios? It's DK Metcalf. Can the Packers defense turn the 5-yard slant pass to DK Metcalf and sustain it so it's only a 5 or a 6-7 yard gain instead of him zigzagging around a defense and turning it into a 30-35 yard gain? That's where a lot of the chapters of this book for this game will be written, because Rodgers and their game plan will be similar, in my opinion, just based off the data from what other teams have done in the passing game when approaching and then playing this Green Bay defense. Rodgers might have a thing or two up his sleeve. Wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. Can Green Bay contain DK Metcalf? Can their corners stick with him to some degree? And we'll find out. Let me know what you guys and gals think. Always appreciative of all the support. It is Mitch M on YouTube. Please click the subscribe button if you haven't already. Takes 3 seconds, costs you nothing. Helps me immensely as I build up the channel. We'll have final thoughts coming up on Thursday.